Councilwoman Bass, Councilman O, Councilman Diamond to my left, Councilman Greenlee. For the record, we will be holding bill numbers 180347, 180351 to the call of the chair. Clerk, would you please read the titles of the bills?
Bills number 180261, an ordinance amending subsection 19-26046 of the Philadelphia Code, under which businesses may enter into agreements to make contributions to community development corporations and certain other organizations to receive credits against business income and receipt taxes by increasing the number of businesses for which the credit shall be made to, all under certain terms and conditions. 180392, an ordinance amending Chapter 19-1400 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Realty Transfer Tax, by amending Section 19-1405, entitled Excluded Transactions, by replacing gendered marital signifiers, and 180393, an ordinance amending Title 19, Chapter 2900 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Senior Citizen Low Income Special Tax Provisions, to make certain technical changes, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Is there anyone here from the administration who wishes to provide testimony for bill numbers 180392 and 180393? You may approach, state your name for the record, and please state your name for the record again, and then begin with your testimony. Thank you.
Fantastic. My name is Amber Hikes, and I am the Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of LGBT Affairs. Should I say it again? If it's okay? All right. The Office of LGBT Affairs develops priorities for the city on issues including public safety, education, economic development, health and city services, and civil rights regarding LGBTQ Philadelphians. As Executive Director, I develop policy and serve as a principal advisor to Mayor Jim Kinney on issues that affect the LGBTQ community. Thank you for introducing these bills and for the opportunity to support this legislation, which replaces gendered marital signifiers in the realty transfer tax and senior citizen low-income special tax provisions. Eradicating the use of gendered language in these ordinances ensures that Philadelphia is protecting its LGBT community members, as well as recognizing that all genders, sexual orientations, and relationships are vital components of our city. Using non-gendered terms such as spouse is a simple solution to a serious problem. For trans and non-binary community members, the term husband and wife or widow and widower fails to accurately recognize their relationship. In the case of gender transition, gendered terms can create at least uncomfortable and at worst dangerous situations where the assigned sex of an individual is public information, even after transition, because of their marriage certificate. Changing the language shows our respect for marriages and the identities of LGBTQ Philadelphians, and it streamlines the legal and estate proceedings wherein such documentation is relevant. In the interest of efficiency, using the word spouse prevents the necessity of administrative changes to documents without detracting in any way from the importance or the gravity of the relationship formed in marriage. Additionally, using non-gendered language also sets a standard of acceptance, which will inspire more confidence in our judicial system's ability to recognize and support people of all genders and sexual orientations. Given that we now celebrate the rights of all residents to love and marry who they choose, it is vital that concrete changes of this kind occur to prevent any residual inequality or discrimination in our laws. The Office of LGBT Affairs wholeheartedly supports Bills 180392 and 180393 and any measures to affirm and accommodate LGBTQ individuals, specifically those who are non-binary and transgender. In situations like these that are deeply personal and incredibly important, the value of these improvements cannot be overstated. So thank you, Councilman Green, Chairman Blackwell, and members of the Committee on Finance for your time and effort in addressing these important issues that impact LGBTQ Philadelphians.
Thank you for your testimony. Chair recognizes that we were joined by Councilwoman Parker. We do have someone else on the panel before I open it up for questions. Sarah Stevenson, if you are here, could you please approach? You may state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony, and then we will open it up for questions.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Stevenson, and I'm here today testifying in my personal capacity. Although I will say the Water Commissioner did grant enthusiastic leave, which shows this administration's support of these moves. Good morning, members of the Finance Committee. I'm before you today as a gay Philadelphian currently residing in the 2nd Councilmanic District. I support the code changes proposed in bills number 180392 and 180393 and thank Councilman Derek Green for their introduction. I married my wife in 2014 at Christ Church at 2nd and Market. I believe that the city of Philadelphia is a progressive place and a residence of choice for many LGBT inclusive people. While we certainly have work to do, I believe the vast majority of residents and the city government itself want to do the right thing and provide a safe and welcoming home to all types of people. This legislation keeps us moving in the right direction. My work requires that I follow the legislation that comes out of this body very closely. While reviewing another bill amending Philadelphia Code Section 19-1405, I noticed that the terms husband and wife are still being used with respect to real estate transactions when same-sex marriage has been legal in Pennsylvania for several years. I recommended replacing these terms with spouse so there would be no mistake about who is entitled to an exemption from the realty transfer tax in Philadelphia. I imagine revenue has been applying the exemption equally in accordance with what the Constitution requires, but words matter in the law and in public discourse. So thank you again to this council, and in particular to Councilman Green, for sponsoring these bills and supporting the LGBT inclusive community in Philadelphia.
Well, thank you for your testimony. Any questions on the committee? Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much, Chairman. So, the bill is fine, but I do have a question. In terms of tracking demographics, we generally like to know, for example, what's happening with women versus men, people over a certain age versus under a certain age, someone who is African American versus someone who is Caucasian. We generally like that information because it helps us to understand what's happening, and if there are cases of discrimination, they can be addressed. And so, while this bill is fine, ultimately, if language is being changed to surviving spouse, if we don't have a way of tracking whether that surviving spouse who is receiving a benefit or taking advantage of a program, or in fact is dominating an area, that surviving spouse is in fact a man versus a woman, how would we correct that? What is your kind of thoughts on that? For example, if there were a surviving spouse and optionally you could put in male or female, if you don't want to identify your gender, that would be an option. Or is this just where we're heading, is we're just going to be gender neutral? Are we ultimately, not going to identify any of these demographic information?
That's what I was about to say. To my knowledge, we don't actually ask for gender. We're not tracking that data as it stands. And I can tell you specifically, when it relates to sexual orientation and gender identity, we're not tracking that data anywhere in the city.
Anyway, so for example, in domestic abuse, if we say domestic abuse spouse, we wouldn't have the information about what percentage are female versus male, for example. Right.
So again, as I'm understanding, there are certain organizations that may be tracking that, but as a city, I'm not sure about that data being collected.
Yeah, what I'm
already.
saying, if we change the terminology within legislation, do we end up not, for example, tracking, having the resulting demographic information that these organizations use in order to lobby, advocate, seek additional funding, to address disparities in the system?
Right, absolutely. And again, we're not tracking that data now, so this change would not affect data that we're already not tracking.
Okay, while we're not tracking, it somehow is being tracked, I would think. It's trackable.
It could be trackable, but I'm saying for the purposes of this bill, that information is not being collected.
Yeah, for the purpose of this bill, I don't have a problem with this bill. I'd like to know overall policy-wise, if we head in this direction, how will we know, for example, that in fact there is de facto discrimination In other words, we have laws that appear to be neutral on their face, then we find that 95% of those adversely affected are women. And then we can look at a legal suit or legislation, or someone can bring it to our attention. If we don't track, you know, the who is being affected in which way, how do we address those situations?
I imagine that data is being pulled from other resources and other sources, and probably not being pulled from the realty transfer tax and the senior citizen low-income special tax provisions.
All right, thank you.
Chair recognizes we are also joined with Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown and Councilman Squilla. Chair, now, is there anyone else on this committee that wishes? Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Well, I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to thank you all for coming and testifying on this important bill this morning. You know, I think that the changes are long overdue, and that they do give a particular level of respect and dignity that we're all trying to work very hard to ensure that all citizens in Philadelphia have. So I just really wanted to thank you for being here and for your testimony, and to the bill sponsor, because this is something that's you know, definitely overdue and moving in the right direction for all of our citizens. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And I'd like to echo that. I think with the, you know, the current administration and previous administration, we're working towards, you know, smart and up-to-date policy for all citizens of the city of Philadelphia. So I think these technical changes will make a great deal of comfort, you know, knowing that, you know, your city government understands and is here to support and change our policies as we see necessary. So thank you so much. Is there anyone else here that wishes to testify on bill number 180392 and 180393? That being none, thank you. We are now going to move on to our next bill, which is 180261. Was there anybody from the administration that wishes to speak and offer testimony on 180261? Panel 1, I believe, is Karen Fegley. If you were here, please approach. State your name for the record, and you may proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, everyone. Councilman Heenan and members of the Finance Committee. My name is Karen Fegley, and I'm a Deputy Commerce Director. I'm here to testify on Bill 180261, a proposal to amend the code in order to expand the number of CDCs that can benefit from the CDC tax credit program. Community development corporations are integral to our neighborhood economic development strategy. These nonprofit organizations carry out activities such as development of housing and commercial properties, linking businesses to resources, connecting workforce to businesses, and tackling crime and blight. CDCs have a tremendous impact on the economic development of the city and play a vital role in revitalizing our neighborhoods. PACDC's 2012 report measured a $3.3 billion impact to Philadelphia's economy. Lamentably, the funding environment for CDCs is scarce, especially for general operations, and we believe the funds provided through the CDC tax credit program has been pivotal to the success of many of our CDCs. And the support we provide has leveraged other capital from foundations, corporations, and individuals. We are grateful to Councilman Wilson Good Jr. for instituting this program, and to all of City Council for your support over the years. Nevertheless, this program has some challenges that have spurred the Department of Commerce, Finance, and several members of Council to explore other models. While we are aware of a number of organizations seeking a slot in the program, there is no way to ensure that the most impactful will be the ones to gain these slots. CDCs have a hard time finding partners that have large BERT liabilities, especially since this is confidential taxpayer information, meaning we can't provide the CDCs a list of eligible partners. Further, businesses enrolled in the program receive no material reduction in their liability since they pay 100% of the credited tax to the CDC, so leaving fewer businesses motivated to participate. Once a business partner has been secured, entry into the program is by lottery, therefore not guaranteed. Additionally, while the 10-year commitment is intended to provide a long-term, stable funding source for a CDC's operations, it is not a guarantee that a business partner will participate for the full 10 years. In 2018, there were at least 3 CDCs scrambling to find new business partners because existing partners dropped out. With job-spurring reduction in BERT rates over the last few years to help our economy thrive, a reduced number of businesses have BERT bills large enough to cover the 10 years of contributions. So rather than expand the number of slots in this program, we want to propose instead offering a direct grant program that would provide very similar benefits for CDCs that are not currently participating in the CDC tax credit program. Commerce would administer a competitive grant program, and similar to the tax credit program, the grants could be used as the CDC leadership sees fit for operating and program expenses in exchange for carrying out their economic development plans. The administration would like this committee to consider leaving the number of slots as is, while we pilot this grant in 2019 with $300,000. This will allow an expansion of the number of CDCs receiving city support for their operations, while also eliminating the exhausting search by CDCs for business partners and allowing the city to better ensure that taxpayer dollars are being allocated in accordance with an organization's need, capacity, and outcomes. We envision the grants being approved for 3 subsequent amendments, providing 4 years of funding, as long as the organization continues to perform. As slots in the CDC tax credit program become available, either through 10-year expiration or the early exit of a business partner, we would ask Council to consider legislation to leave those slots unfilled when equivalent funding is made available in the grant program. As a safeguard, the legislation could specify that if the operating budget in any given year does not provide for the grants, then the tax credit would come back and the open slots would be filled. I want to reiterate that I'm really glad to have the opportunity to testify and grateful that we are partners in supporting neighborhood economic development. Thank you for your consideration. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. I do have several questions here. I'd like to start it off. And first, thank you, the department, and thank you for working with our commercial and corridor managers throughout the city and our CDCs, and in particular the 6th District. You know, I'm very prideful of the work that all our CDCs and our commercial quarters do, because
Absolutely.
they are the vein in the revitalization, I think, from you know, the corridors to, you know, to the neighborhoods. All right, that's, you know, it's how we shop. We shop local. We encourage that. We encourage walkable districts, and that's why I think this is extremely important. And I do applaud Councilman Good, you know, for seizing this opportunity to create it early on. So, how long has the city had the CDC program, or how many CDCs do we know exist in the city of Philadelphia? Are you aware or
Stumped
rough?
me on the first question. So there's no official designation of a CDC. I mean, a lot of people use it in their name, but there's no like certification or anything that, you know, to make an entity a CDC. But I would guess, probably 60, 70 CDCs or organizations that behave like CDCs.
60 or 70?
The first question was 2002. What year?
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah, that's a guess off the top of my head.
Right.
There's 40 CDCs currently in the program. I'm guessing there's another, you know, and it's kind of on any given day.
Another 10 waiting to get in?
There are some waiting to get in, for sure. And Marissa just gave me the program started in 2002 with 10 slots.
With 10 slots.
Yeah.
So you answered
And we're now up to 40, right?
And you answered my next question. So with the grant program that you mentioned, would the number of renewals be capped to only allow for 4 years of funding
That's
as opposed to 10?
I mean, we're only currently allowed to enter 1-year contracts with 3 extensions. So that would be the limit there. It's not that, an organization would have to reapply after 4 years. That's all. It's not that they couldn't come back in for continued, you know, for another 4 years.
So they would reapply up to
Yeah, but it would be right. You'd be applying for a one-year contract, and then we'd be able to extend that 3 times for 4 years, and then the slot would become open again, sort of similar to the tax credit program where
Said it would just continue if the funding is consistent, just to reapply.
Yeah,
Just
yes.
just like any other CDC. But so how many grants would be offered for the $300,000 pilot that you mentioned?
I think we'd have to determine that. Currently, the program offers $100,000 a year. There's been some discussion and some sort of desire for offering smaller grants for some of our newer CDCs to get started with maybe, $50,000. So we could consider maybe doing 2 $100,000 slots and 2 $50,000 slots, but that has not yet been determined.
Okay. Would these grants shift the focus of the CDCs from long-term planning and capital improvements to short-term objectives in order to demonstrate compliance with the grants?
I don't think so. I think we would still be asking, similar to we do in the tax credit program, we'd still be asking for a 5-year plan. We'd still encourage them to look forward. But I do think it would emphasize a little more like what are your results year to year, which I think would be good for all of us to be able to, have those talking points and be able to see that action a little more clearly.
Absolutely, because you do want to see.
Yeah, you want to see
goals,
some
objectives,
movement.
Measurements.
And we understand in commerce that economic development workers, especially I know you understand too. We're in it for the long haul. But you want to see movement and progress on a year-to-year basis for sure.
Right. Okay. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds-Brown.
Good morning. You've pretty much answered my question because when I hear a number off the top of someone's head, I want to know based on what. But you answered the question saying that you started out with 40, or when the program started there were 40.
Yeah, there's currently 40 CDCs participating in the program.
Okay.
Yes, so we know that there are 40, and I would guess, in Philadelphia, as you know, we have a number of nonprofit organizations and a number of neighborhood-based organizations. Some of them don't even have staff; they're totally volunteer-led. So the larger number was really trying to be inclusive of all the types of groups doing this work.
Sure.
But
sure.
It is a guess, and I'm wondering if PACDC has a better, an accurate number. But she can tell you that when she gets up here.
Thank you.
So we started at 15 slots, right, when it was codified?
It was 10 originally.
10?
Yeah.
Okay. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you. Hi, Karen. How are you?
Hi.
I just had a couple of questions on the pilot program. And I know you said that the size of grants had not been determined yet. But I was wondering if you would elaborate a little bit more, or do you have any additional details on what the startup program is? Because it seems that Commerce is really trying to move away from the tax credit program. And if we are trying to move away, I just think that we need something a little more solid to hang our hat on, especially when it comes to our CDCs, because we need them. Our commercial corridors are, many times in distress. I have a few in my district that are in significant distress, and so without the CDC, I can't even imagine, what the corridor would look like if it didn't have that CDC functioning and operating on the corridor. Absolutely. And at the same time, I also recognize that it is very hard. We've worked with CDCs to try to get them partnerships with corporations to be able to get that tax credit benefit. So do you have any additional detail in terms of how this pilot program could potentially work and how it would be helpful?
Yeah, and I'll talk about it a little bit. And we sort of drafted like a one-pager, just a concept of it, so I'll make sure that's shared with all of you.
Okay.
But the idea is we would try to mirror this as closely as possible. What's really attractive, I think, to our CDCs is the flexibility of these funds. They receive them from their business partners, so the city is not it's not a city contract, and it's there's a lot of flexibility. So we would similarly allow them to use it for sort of as they see fit, for overhead expenses, for staff, salaries, office, rent, all that kind of thing. In exchange, what we want to see, similar to this program, is we want to see what is your organization accomplishing. We won't necessarily ask for every, invoice and receipt of how the dollars.
Right.
But
you want to see a track record?
But we want to see the outcomes.
Now-
What we also would like to do is ensure that we would pay up front in quarterly installments, which I think would be a positive to most of the beneficiaries. One of the other things with the program is it's totally up to the business partner as to when they pay the CDC, when they make their contribution. So some of them do it the whole amount up front, some of them do it in installments, and some of them wait until December 31st and pay them, the whole $85,000 or $100,000 at that point. So we hope that by doing quarterly installments that an organization can sort of count on that will help them with their operating and cash flow.
Okay. Did you, when it comes to grants being awarded in this pilot program, you mentioned that you thought startup CDCs would be, one of the targets, or would it be more established? When you talk about you want to see a track record, if you want a track record, a startup CDC isn't going to really have that significant of a track record versus, one of our established,
right.
CDCs that's been on the avenue that, can't find a partner to connect with.
You're right, and I guess I'm not sure by startup if I would actually mean. I don't think this program is probably for brand new organizations.
Okay.
Because it is a big commitment from the city. I think that, but we do require a match with this program. We require that the organizations, even in the current CDC tax credit program, to be considered an eligible qualifying CDC, you have to show that your organizational budget is at least double the size of your contribution. And that's because we want to make sure that this isn't the only money sustaining an organization, because if so, they're not going to be able to have as big of an impact. That can be a big jump for some newer or smaller, not necessarily new. Some of our long-term organizations, but they run a very, lean ship, and they don't have a big budget. And so, so potentially we would consider, and again, I think this would be done in discussion with you and the CDC community, if that makes sense, to offer smaller ones. So like instead of having to show a $100,000 match, maybe you can get a $50,000 grant and show a $50,000 match, and spend 4 years sort of doing more work that way, and maybe building up to be ready to take on the bigger program.
Okay.
But up for debate.
That's okay. It sounds like, like it's still very much information. And I would just suggest that, since we have made it clear from the testimony that we're moving away from the tax credit model, that, that we have as much information as possible, as soon as possible,
Okay.
Regarding what that replacement's going to be, because our constituents will be asking us.
Absolutely.
But I look forward to getting that additional information. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. The chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When we talked about the current program and that it's blocked, would that just go away?
No. I mean, the program is, as the people that are in it, they're all at some stage in their 10 years. What we are proposing is that as slots expire, that the administration budget those dollars towards the grant program, so that, yes, slowly it could go away. I mean, I think there's another 8 years before the final slots are up.
But the organization would still need a partner, correct? How do you match the grant funding?
I mean, the grant would be a direct grant, and then it's up to the organization to, do the general fundraising they already do to match this program, yeah. But it wouldn't require any partner. What it could do, and this is a little bit anecdotal, is encourage more partners to apply for the state's tax credit program, so that they could continue to contribute to these organizations and through the state's NAP tax credit program.
And then where would the money come from for the grants?
It would be city
general funds? And are you capping it at a value that would be equal to what is there now?
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of into the future, so I think time will tell. But yeah, the idea is that we would have It would be basically $300,000 that we're proposing to pilot with this year if we keep the slots as is, the 40 slots plus $300,000. And then as the slots expire, you add that money over to the grant program. So ultimately, rather than, I think right now it's like, the budget is like 3.65 million, it would be 3.95 million.
So you would never lose that additional dollars where you'd have the additional slots available. When do you see the grant program, would you be able to initiate it or start it so that people would be able to apply?
I mean, we could do it as soon as some budget agreement is reached.
July 1st?
Yes, theoretically, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to you. Thank you for your testimony. Sure. Obviously a part of the choir, and I am proud that we are going to hear from one of the most successful CDCs in the 9th District here today. We'll hear from Stephanie Michelle and from the North 5th Street Revitalization Project. And with that being said, I want to turn your attention to both two statements that are in your testimony, Karen, and we have yet to hear Beth McConnell's testimony, but I want to get your feedback before Beth comes up to testify. You state that CDCs have a hard time finding partners that have large BERT liabilities, especially since this is confidential taxpayer information. Further, businesses enrolled in the program receive no material reduction in their liability since they pay 100% of the credited tax to the CDC. In addition, when Beth comes up to testify, she says, unfortunately, an increasing number of CDCs are losing their tax credit partners because fewer companies have adequate BERT liability. And just for the benefit of the public, because I hate when people use acronyms that I don't understand, especially when I don't use them every day. BERT is business income and the receipts tax. And so Beth argues in her testimony that because this number is decreasing, that we should potentially think about real estate tax liability, because then we open up a larger pool. What is your thinking? What is Commerce's thinking about that? So if BERT, we know that number is being reduced. We also know, as you state, that this is confidential tax information. So two questions. One, have we ever asked or incentivized a business to allow their contact information to be shared? And when I say incentivize, if you owe BERT, but you allow the city to share, your information, you receive a 5% or 10% reduction. And so now we've incentivized a business's willingness to allow their name to be shared with CDC. So why don't I get an answer to that one first? Have we ever thought about that as a tool?
No, not that I know of.
Is it possible for us to think about that as a tool?
Yeah, revenue would have to speak to that. I know that even the people that participate in this program, the businesses that participate, we did add a checkbox for them to say that whether they were willing to even say that they participated, because really their participation, their receipt of a tax credit is actually a confidential matter.
Right.
And maybe like half of them even check that box. So some of them don't even once they're in the program, don't want us to talk about it. But what you're talking about is, or the problem is identifying all the other businesses that could potentially be in the program. And we haven't asked them to sort of self-identify. We speak about it and we encourage, the Chamber of Commerce to encourage their members to seek out the program. But it's different than, in businesses' mind, when you're telling them about tax credit programs, they're thinking about things that are a benefit to their business. Mm-hmm. And of course, we all want to say there is ancillary benefits, but really this is them acting as a pass-through to the benefit of the community and the community organization.
Well,
And
I
so
agree with
sometimes
you.
it's-
While I agree with you wholeheartedly, I would also argue that there are some businesses, because of the branding associated with being of assistance to the community at large, they also understand that the added value to their participation in the program is that we
Absolutely.
find out in our neighborhood that X corporation is a part of this program supporting economic development. And so we as a community-based organization say, hey, how do we support that company? Because
Right.
that company supports us. I asked you on the record, because I know that there is some legislation that is forthcoming that will attempt to specifically outline a financial incentive, because you referenced the bottom line. Right, this has to make good economic sense for the business. So there'll be some legislation forthcoming that will do exactly that, to incentivize a business, and hopefully they will be more willing to share information, even if it's not public, only with the Commerce Department, who communicates with those CDCs, new and or more seasoned, who are interested in participating. So just wanted to get your thoughts and ideas on that. In addition to that, I do see revenue in the room. Is it possible for revenue to give us a response relative to what we're going to hear in Beth McConnell's testimony? And I just want to say it again. And that is, she talks about real estate tax liability is a growth area for the city. You hear us talking about finding creative ways and being more aggressive to collect delinquent taxes, and that information is publicly available. Have we ever thought about the idea of offering some sort of tax credit, not simply against BERT liability, but against real estate tax liability?
Hi, Marissa Waxman, First Deputy Revenue Commissioner. Yes, absolutely, we considered that idea because it does get around a lot of the hurdles that we've identified with BERT. One, the confidentiality problem, and two, the fact that, we've been reducing our BERT, our business income and receipts tax rates for years, and as a result, there's a lot there. We went from 90,000 folks having to pay the BERT down to 30,000 and not having those large liabilities. So that's a tremendous success story that has this consequence for this particular program. And so when we saw the problems with the current program, we started coming up with ideas of, well, what would work better? And we considered the real estate tax, and it really gets around that confidentiality problem beautifully. But there was sort of two outstanding issues for us there. One, 55% of the real estate tax goes to the school district of Philadelphia. So if we're going to forego that tax or give a credit to businesses participating in this program, much of the burden then for this program would shift from the general fund to the school district. And as we're trying to support our schools, that was a real concern. And then the second one was that there's still that administrative effort that the CDCs then need to put into finding business partners and then having the business partners go through that administrative effort. And so when we evaluated that idea, we came to actually a grant program that really would streamline that process.
So let me just interrupt you, because for the benefit of the public that is watching, who are committed to public education the way I know I, along with all of my colleagues, are, please note for the record that if this program were to be defined the way we would sort of not eliminate, but we would add real estate tax liability as a tool that interested CDCs could use, we could exempt the school district portion of the real estate taxes. So, just so we know that there's a school district portion and there's a general fund portion, but for the benefit of the public that is literally, particularly in middle neighborhoods like mine, that for many years have been exempted from using particularly those dollars that come through the community development block grant funding based on their census tract, and they weren't able to receive some of that funding. Special thanks to Commerce for working very, very, very hard to come up with a creative way to send dollars there. But there is a way that this could be designed so that we are not in any way, shape, or form touching the school district of Philadelphia portion of that tax liability. So I just wanted to get
Yes.
that on the record.
Yeah, and we appreciate that, and we explored that as well. And when we were looking at the size of the pools, that then though shrinks again, who's got a city portion of the real estate tax large enough to cover this?
So shrink the pool, tell me what does that mean?
So at that point, you know, if you're going from looking for a property owner who has a $100,000 tax bill, if you decide, okay, well, 55,000 of that, which would go to the school district, that's not part of it. All of a sudden, what you need is more like somebody with a $200,000 real estate tax bill. And so there's fewer of those out there for the CDCs to partner with. So we're constantly just trying.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, I want to get this on the record, but I appreciate the leeway that you've provided, Mr. Chairman, in this line of questioning. I also want to note that when you talk about real estate tax delinquency and you use that $100,000 model, note here that unlike Burt, where you're talking about the decrease and now you're at 30,000, we're talking about an increase in volume.
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting a larger
Absolutely.
number because there are a larger number of firms that are delinquent in real estate taxes, and even as you just described, versus even the 30,000 that you've gotten down to with Burt. So even if the number is smaller, because you've exempted the school district portion, the volume that we're looking at is higher. I just wanted to make good economic sense for the people at home who are watching.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're right, Councilwoman Parker, and we're happy to go back and look at the size of that universe so that we can get a real good understanding about where it is and where it might grow to.
So thank you so very much. And Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you so very much for your patience and your leeway. Commerce, let me say for the record, thank you so very much for the creativity you've used in trying to direct much needed funds to commercial corridors and burgeoning CDCs like our 9th District superstar, 5th Street Revitalization Corporation, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Ms. Fegley, in your testimony, you mentioned that the Burt liability of any particular company is confidential, or we've been having this conversation now, confidential information and can't be shared with CDCs. And I respect that, and I don't feel that we should unnecessarily be sharing that information. However, since the information is available to the city, and then Commerce does have an outreach to the business community and has had previous liability that exceeds the funding level, all right, to gauge can we gauge other businesses in their willingness to serve as a partner?
So on behalf of the Department of Revenue, that's information that the Department of Revenue is certainly happy to help doing outreach directly to those businesses. Local, state, and federal law would prohibit us for sharing that information with the Department of Commerce to do that because it's not for the purposes of tax administration, but it is something that the Department of Revenue can certainly step up our outreach and engagement to entities who have tax bills at the level that would make them eligible to participate in the program.
Great, and I think that would be helpful, something that, you know, I ask that we take a look at. All right, this way we can gauge, we can see who is eligible and that would qualify, and, you know, there's no harm in, you know, notification, letting businesses know that, you know, they are eligible to be a tax credit partner with part of the community. As some of our members had mentioned, you know, there is a lot of value to, you know, good, responsible businesses who are actually, you know, engaged in their communities, who are partners with their commercial corridors, who are partners with their CDCs to continue, all right, to give back to the city of Philadelphia if they choose so. And they may just not know it, all right, just not realize that there's another opportunity for them, all right, to, you know, be really, I mean, supportive of their communities in any way, in any fashion.
Mm-hmm. And I will actually let you know that in tax year 2016, we introduced a new tax form, very exciting, the special tax credit form, that when businesses are completing their annual tax returns, they can now sort of see a list of all of the tax credits. And that's a great moment that lets businesses go, hey, there's maybe something out there that I wasn't aware of. And we've seen a real increase in the inquiries from businesses about all of our tax credit programs because now it's part of their tax return that they're filling out.
Wonderful. Thank you. And the chair recognizes Councilman Dom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. I just had a couple of quick questions. I just want to make sure I understand the program. But basically, this is a redirection of the BERT taxes to CDCs.
Correct.
And how much in total taxes last year were redirected?
Hang on, it's in my purse.
The total dollar, I mean, it's about 3.6 million.
3.6 million.
Yeah.
That goes to CDCs instead of the city?
Correct. So the businesses, and so there's actually, the whole program is actually 42 organizations. Commerce monitors the program for the CDCs doing economic development, so that's 40. There's 36 CDCs and 4 intermediaries. There's an additional 2 organizations that are food access related organizations that the health department monitors with revenue. The majority of them receive $85,000 a year contribution and the business in exchange for an $85,000 tax credit. There are about 10 slots that get $100,000 a year. And I think the program has been changed that as the new slots become available, it will be at the $100,000 level. So the dollar amount changes
So from the
slightly.
city's perspective, they can budget, they know what the numbers are going to be that they're not going to get from BERT taxes from this, right?
Correct.
Yes.
And the tax year 2016 total, including the healthy one slots, is $3.72 million.
Okay, I just want to clarify that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else on the committee wish to ask any questions to the panel? Well, thank you so much for your testimony, unless you want to add anything.
I wanted to add one sort of clarification. When we started talking, you were asking about the number of CDCs, and I sort of guesstimated at, a large 60 to 70. And I'm thinking about the number of organizations on any sort of given day, month, year that are out in our community, nonprofits who are really working to improve their community. The truth is there is not enough funding out there, not just from the city, but out there, to support that many organizations. And so there's really, that's the point of us asking for sort of the match and leverage of these city funds, because actual organizations with staff and boards and the capacity to implement programs in their community is probably, roughly say around 40. And our suggested change to a grant is about making the city funds more equitable and accessible for the organizations that are really doing that work. If there were 70 CDCs or organizations calling themselves CDCs on any given day and they were all eligible to apply for this program, they're not all going to be the ones that are doing this work and have the track record and have the experience and the capacity to get things done in their community. And I think that is why we're proposing something where we can give a better look at who's doing the work and making sure that these city dollars are sort of leveraging that impact in the community.
Oh,
So,
I
thanks.
appreciate your addition, but again, I want to state for the record that you do a fantastic job,
Thank you.
Holding the community groups of CDCs accountable for their hard work, right? And it is all about outcomes. It's all about measured outcomes, efficiencies, and services that are delivered to the community. So the ones that are receiving it and the ones that will be requesting, and I know there's a couple in my district, all right, that have identified some good business partners. They are absolutely committed. All right, they are responsive to making sure that the deliverables are measured and they have the outcomes that the program
Great.
is attended to. So I appreciate your additional comments. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Chairman Heenan, and you just moved me, Chairman, when you described the importance of maximizing the efficient use of very scarce and limited resources, and you talked about those CDCs that were doing extremely well that you were familiar with in your district. But for the benefit of the viewing public in neighborhoods across the city, I want you to understand that the backroom technical capacity of CDCs, those that are just starting, those who find themselves in the middle, and then we have some big guys that sort of mirror a small company. All technical capacities are not created equal. And because you don't have the technical capacity, it does not mean that the skill set needed to do the work or the intellectual prowess is not there. In some instances, it's the funding needed to secure the intellectual property you need. That means the accountant, the administrative assistant, the IT person needed to be able to comply with the grant writing rules, the government rules, and all of those things that allow the big guys to be seasoned to be able to comply. The rules are, while the rules are the same, the capacity to make sure that you comply with the rules are not the same. So I just needed to state that for the record, because while I know some that are doing it extremely well and they've been responsible for bringing life and vibrancy back to entire communities, there's some like 5th Street that are right there in the middle, and then I have some, I'm thinking about Medina, that are right there, but they need the administrative capacity and the technical assistance to just grow. So I don't want you to think that anyone in the public watching that the technical capacity of all of these organizations is in any way created equal. Sometimes it's also the board membership that you have. How wealthy are they? The volunteers, what is your individual fundraising prowess like? And so rest assured, you know, the little 9th district that could, our private fundraising capacity is not going to be the same as the square, either one of the squares. It's just going to be different. So I want the public to understand that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the leeway.
Thank you, Councilwoman, and thank you both for your testimony and your questions or answers to the questions. Move to panel 2, Beth McConnell, Alex Balloon, and Beth Miller. Please approach, state your name for the record, and you may proceed with your testimony. And before you start, I do want to recognize Alex Balloon, who is in District 6, who is a fantastic and wonderful commercial Carter manager, who does have a partner who has really done a wonderful job. And I got to tell you, when you talk about some of the programs, Councilwoman Parker, you know all about the programs of SafeCam, the commercial Carters, storefront improvement programs. All right. This commercial Carter exceeds by far, I think, a lot around the city of Philadelphia, up to like 34 storefront improvements, and we were thriving and we were growing and we were succeeding, all right, because of this tax credit partnership. So thank you. Beth, you may state your name for the record and begin with your testimony.
Great. Good morning. My name is Beth McConnell, Policy Director with the Philadelphia Association of Community Development Corporations. I submitted written testimony for the record. I'm not going to read that testimony. I do want to highlight a few things and maybe use the balance of my time to react and respond to the prior conversation. First, I do want to thank Councilman Heenan for his leadership, not only in introducing this bill today to expand the tax credit program, but for all of your leadership to support our commercial corridors, not just in your district, but across the entire city. And I want to thank other members of the council. I think every member of this committee we have partnered with in one way or another to support our corridors. Councilwoman Parker to push back against the federal cuts at a press conference recently. Councilman O, I know you've toured countless commercial corridors throughout our city, and forgive me if I'm not recognizing everybody, but I do want to acknowledge all of that important work. And I also do want to acknowledge former Councilman Wilson Good, who's here with us today, who is the creator of this program. And I'm going to just read the last line of my testimony before I jump around. Under his leadership, this program has literally become a port in the storm during very unpredictable times. We don't know whether federal funding will be available to support our neighborhood economic development from one year to the next, but CDCs that are in the CDC tax credit program know that they are anchored and will make it through turbulence to continue to serve our communities. And I want to underscore that really important point. I also just want to say that this program has been an enormous success in Philadelphia, and I hope we don't don't try to fix what isn't broke, although I do think some improvements can certainly be made. It's the reason why we have such a vibrant, strong network of CDCs in every kind of neighborhood in the city, whether it's regional destination corridors like Chinatown, middle neighborhoods like Tacony, low-income neighborhoods like Nicetown, and West Philadelphia, where small business businesses are facing gentrification and rising rents, every single neighborhood can benefit from a nonprofit CDC whose mission is entirely focused on that specific community and which deploys the right strategies for each neighborhood to provide economic opportunity and activity. PACDC is a part of the tax credit program, and it supports our commercial corridor working group, which is a monthly gathering of corridor managers throughout the city so that they can learn best practices from each other. We also bring in various city agencies, whether it's L&I or the Commerce Department, streets, et cetera, to talk about delivery of service and how they can be better prepared to do the jobs in their neighborhoods. We also run a Community Development Leadership Institute with the resources we have from the program that provides training and technical support to CDCs. So these are ways that we help support CDCs that are in the program, but also that are not in the program in ways that they can use whatever resources they have to become highly functioning, highly successful organizations in their neighborhoods. I do want to acknowledge that the three of us that are on this panel are all in the program, so you'll hear a bit more about why it has been useful, and then I know we'll hear from 7 organizations today that would love to get into the program and why. As you know, phasing out the CDC tax credit program, as has been suggested, and replacing it with a grant program would require council ordinance and council legislation. And I hope if that's something that this council would consider, that you would give an opportunity to the 40 organizations that are in that program right now and rely on it as lifeblood to be able to come and talk to you about why this program is valuable as it is and why they'd like for it to remain. We didn't invite all of them to come today in the interest of time, and you did have some other things on the agenda as well. I also want to acknowledge that there may be some smaller CDCs that may not be ready for a 10-year commitment of $100,000 per year. Maybe they're just getting started and they need a little bit more time to do the community engagement, to build out their board and their management practices, to do some sort of planning. And so a smaller grant program or even a mini CDC tax credit program that's maybe a 5-year program or $50,000 slots might be a great way to help build those organizations up until they're ready to take on the responsibility and commitment of the larger 10-year commitment for $100,000. But I think you'll see today that we have a number of organizations here in the city that have already reached that capacity and are ready for the CDC tax credit program. I do also want to make sure that council members are aware that CDCs submit reports every single year to the Commerce Department when they're in the tax credit program that lay out the accomplishments, what they've done with the resources in the past year, as well as their plans for the coming year. So there's plenty of opportunity to work with CDCs to improve and expand performance if that's necessary within those reports. I know that when I've looked through some of those reports, I've been amazed at the amount of work that people have reported doing with those resources, far beyond what I think they're receiving resources to do in terms of the planning, the streetscape improvements, the community engagement, the fundraising that a lot of CDCs use this resource to pay for the staff that then go out and raise the money to do the capital improvements on the corridor, to manage the targeted corridor management program, help implement the storefront improvement program, and a lot of the other programs that this council has been very supportive of. I also want to acknowledge that there are some corporate partners that are more engaged than others. And we would welcome the opportunity to reach out to corporate partners that have been very engaged to come and talk to you as well. Some corporate partners provide additional in-kind support to the CDCs, maybe on their board of directors. They may provide office space. They may help staff and volunteer events. They may provide in-kind legal counsel. So there are a number for which that participation is pretty vibrant, and we can continue to make it more vibrant for those that have not been as engaged. And I guess the last thing, two last things that I'll say, and I'll wrap up, and happy to answer questions, is that I know some folks have registered some concern that the process for selecting who gets in the program and out is a bit random. There literally is a tin can. If there are 2 slots and 3 applicants, they pick the names out of the hat. And I know some have expressed some concern that that might not be the right way to do it, but there's a lot of value in that as well. Once a CDC is deemed eligible and qualified to be in the program, this allows CDCs that are in some neighborhoods that otherwise might not get support or attention just as good of a shot and as an opportunity as CDCs in other neighborhoods. So there is some real value in that. The last thing I want to say, I want to thank you, Councilwoman Parker, for raising our suggestion to allow real estate tax credit partners. I think the more flexibility there is in CDCs being able to find partners from, regardless of what the tax is to the city, and also a larger number of partners. So right now they're limited to only 2 partners max. If they were able to have 3 partners or 4 partners, it would make it much easier for them to be able to find whether it's a BERT partner or a real estate partner to kind of bring that together. And I have not heard from the CDC perspective that would be an administrative burden on their end. I think they would welcome that opportunity to have that flexibility. So I want to thank you again very much for the opportunity to testify, and thank you for letting me go off script a bit, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Beth, if you may state your name for the record, proceed with your testimony.
Hi, good morning. My name is Beth Miller, and I'm the Executive Director of the Community Design Collaborative. For those of you not familiar with the collaborative, we're a volunteer community-based design center that coordinates early design services. We match community-based nonprofits with design volunteers to strengthen neighborhoods through design. A key program area of our work is community and economic development. Through the Community Development Tax Credit Program, the collaborative became a qualifying nonprofit intermediary in 2012, along with Regional Housing Legal Services, PACDC, and LISC. And this dedicated support for us really allows us to leverage pro bono preliminary design services for community development corporations. Our 10-year target is to deliver 50 design grants with a pro bono value of $1 million in preliminary design services through 2022. Since 2012, through the tax credit program alone, the collaborative has delivered 32 design grants that have leveraged nearly 12,000 pro bono hours with a value of $1.25 million in pro bono design services. In recent years, we've worked with Germantown United, Frankfurt CDC, Allegheny West Foundation, and Called to Serve. And currently, we have active design grants with Nueva Esperanza, Tacony CDC, and the Passyunk Square Civic Association. Soon we'll be soliciting nominations for the 2018 Storefront Challenge. That's undertaken in partnership with Commerce. That biannual award, they celebrate storefront improvement projects in neighborhoods throughout the city. They also amplify the impact of community development corporations, corridor managers, private businesses, and building owners. We could not do this work without our 2 business partners. They're Ballinger and Volpe Koenig. They were hard to find, but we're very glad to have them. They make an annual contributions totaling $85,000 for our program. This private nonprofit partnership has also allowed us to provide Ballinger, a national design firm based in Philadelphia since 1878, a great opportunity to introduce their employees to public interest design opportunities in Philadelphia. Active and engaged communities are a linchpin of equitable neighborhoods. And the city has been a key partner in supporting, implementing, and promoting equitable community development. The CDC tax credit program supports these efforts throughout the city and should be expanded. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Alex.
Thank you so much for your introduction, Councilman Heenan. My name is Alex Bloon, and I'm the Executive Director of the Tacony CDC located in Northeast Philadelphia. I'm here to testify in support of the bill. We participate in this program with our partner, Waste Management, and we applaud Councilman Heenan not only for your leadership with respect to this bill, but also your unwavering support for our revitalization efforts in Tacony. The CDC tax credit program has been an enormous success in Philadelphia and is a critical tool for middle neighborhood revitalization. Working hand in hand with the Commerce Department, we have championed the low-cost, high-impact investments to move our market from disinvestment towards new investment. Many of our city's middle neighborhoods don't qualify for CDBG funding because their average income may be just slightly over the limit. The most critical piece to the CDC tax credit program is the 10-year term. Any community development professional would tell you that neighborhood development moves at the speed of trust. It takes years to build and cultivate that trust with neighbors and business owners to encourage them to do a storefront project, camera project, or new business investment. This work doesn't get done on an annual grant cycle. 6 years in, we would not have been able to fix up our 34 storefronts or install more than 100 cameras without this long-term stability. The city's other grant programs like TCMP are very short-term cycle, typically 12 to 24 months. That makes it difficult and to be strategic and intentional on that short-term budget cycle merry-go-round. Finally, commercial corridor revitalization is one of the best returns on investment the city of Philadelphia can make. For every dollar invested, we leverage an additional $18 in private and other investment. No other economic development program achieves that kind of leverage. We know other neighborhoods want to follow this model, and they too can achieve success. We at the CDC, Tacony CDC, urge the City Council and the Mayor to approve the bill to continue the critical investment in our city's neighborhood economic development. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony, and we're proud of all the CDCs and the PA CDC and the Commerce Department for all the technical support and the collaborative. I have a question for the CDC. So how does the CDC tax grant leverage other technical supports and other resources, to help grow the CDC to participation in other partners? And that could be for anybody, because I think, the PA CDC and the Commerce Department offer wonderful programs, and I offer, as PACDC, as you know, Beth, in your testimony, all right, that you have services that you bring out to the quarters. All right, I do on my commercial quarters. I have business services happy hour where we bring the revenue department's been gracious to come out. You have the Commerce Department, you have L&I, you have other special services that the city has to offer right there on the commercial quarter, in one of its businesses, local businesses, to partner with, the CDC or, a bid or another special service opportunity. So how does the tax credit really leverage and grow the technical support and other, capital, fundraising opportunities?
So the CDC tax credit funding provides the core support to hire the staff, to keep the lights on, to pay the rent and the utilities, so that you have folks there that can build the organization, that can then go out and apply for the targeted corridor management program and prove that they have the capacity and can hire the staff to implement that, to apply for corridor cleaning grant programs, and again, manage those programs, to go after state funding or other federal funding, maybe to do mixed-use development on a commercial corridor. You need the staff to go out and apply, to research those funding opportunities, to go out and apply for them again after you get denied, and apply for them again after you get denied the third time, and then once successful, have the staff to implement and manage and oversee all of that work over time. And also think about the organizational development opportunities. What are the ways to engage neighbors more effectively and thoroughly, to engage volunteers and engage donors? Most federal and state grant opportunities don't provide the resources for the staff to do that kind of hard work. It's very outcomes driven. Perform this particular function in this particular period of time, and then fill out this form in triplicate. And I'm maybe exaggerating about the forms, but the CDC tax credit program is kind of the yeast, basically, that helps the bread rise. Alex, do you want to share any of your particular experience?
I'll just say, Councilman Heenan, when we started, most of our problem properties were on Torresdale Avenue. when we started our problem property task force. Now many of those houses have been completely renovated, are home to new families, largely in the workforce, but most of the money that we leverage is private investment from businesses, residential development. So Beth did a good job summing up other government money that we can tap, like the state or federal government. But I'd say mostly it's private investment.
And I think it's important for everybody to know that you may have the seed of the credit, all right, but it leverages a lot more accountable and strict grant resources to help grow, because not one person, all right, can run an organization like that, without leveraging other and additional resources and having partnership with the city. I mean, I made a commitment to my district, and I put a district office right there in Torresdale, which needed, Torresdale needed a little TLC, and we're giving it to them, and we're doing it all together in a collaborative way, and we're utilizing all the resources that we possibly can, all right, through your hard work. Everybody that volunteers their time, the board and the community's hard work, all right, is helping revitalize neighborhoods throughout the city of Philadelphia, and that's why you mentioned unequivocally in your testimony, I will never blink, all right, on neighborhood organizations who are trying to better the quality of life and build up our communities. So thank you. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to, for the record, Mr. Chairman, say one, thank you for you. So I want you to know we are going to steal your business services night model and try to see if we can duplicate what you've done in the Tacony area in the 9th District. And I specifically wanted to say to you, Alex, this is probably about the second or third time I've seen you come to testify regarding economic development or something impacting middle neighborhoods. And wanted to tell you specifically, thank you for how you communicate the work that you do. And that when you talk about fixing up 32 storefronts and installing more than 100 cameras. If you didn't feel the energy, I was kicking my heels under the table, Mr. Chairman, just trying to say, well, wow, you've given us something to use as a benchmark for how we can begin measuring progress. So I want to say thank you to you. To both, I was getting ready to call you two Beths, but then I said I'll just call them Beth M's, and both of you are Beth M's, so that doesn't even work. But to Beth from the Design Collaborative, thank you so much, because that technical pro bono support is what, and I won't name them today, but there are some neighborhoods who have engineers, architects, attorneys who are residents of a particular community, and because they live there, they just naturally contribute their skill to advance the neighborhood in which they live in. And then there are some neighborhoods that are not that fortunate. So what you all do is give neighborhoods, particularly those that don't have that in-house technical residency there, you give us also the opportunity to access design experts. And so we want to say thank you to you and to Beth. Thank you for, and I was talking to Councilman Heenan's staff and Rachel in my office, and that when you talked about the different levels or capacity of CDCs, those who are just starting, those who are in the middle, and those who are seasoned, it is true that the grant program that could be done at a very smaller scale proposed by Commerce, it is an awesome opportunity, and we are excited about that. But the importance of preserving, Councilman Heenan, which is why this legislation is so important, and thank you for your leadership here, but it's so important to keep it, sort of institutionalized, because it is working and it is successful. But when you acknowledge that the smaller guys haven't been able to access or not even prepared or had the capacity to access the program. I appreciate you just putting that on the record, and I think we should be able to walk and chew gum at the same time and take advantage of the development, which I think is very creative. Commerce should be commended for it, the grant program, but also finding a way to increase the pool and make available the opportunities of the program in itself. So I just wanted to say thank you on the record, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your leeway. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other member on the committee? Well, thank you all for your testimony, and we will, clerk, would you please read our next panel?
Stephanie Michael, Musa Chalwali, and Andy Trackman.
Still good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Please, whoever would like to start things, Stephanie, your name was mentioned first, so if you'd like to identify yourself, please, and proceed.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Stephanie Michelle, and I am the director of the North Fifth Street Revitalization Project. Thank you so much, Councilwoman Parker, for all of your high remarks and being an advocate for North Fifth Street Revitalization Project and Olney. We do so much because of you and your support, and I just wanted to say thank you. So we work closely with the merchants and residents of Olney to improve the North Fifth Street commercial corridor. In 2006, we received funding with the support of then Councilwoman Tasco through the city's Commerce Department, allowing us to initiate a project for revitalization on our commercial corridor. Since then, the North Fifth Street commercial corridor has begun to flourish and radiates from its hub at 5th and Olney all the way down to 5th and the Boulevard. So we have a 1.5 mile stretch. And we have over 330 active businesses, and it is a vibrant pedestrian and public transit-friendly shopping area. For several years, our office only ran on the manpower of volunteers. Our work and staff has progressed, although slowly, with a 2-person office assisting businesses in securing the required licensing for their businesses and signage, providing technical assistance through workshops and one-on-one consulting, managing the business association, providing, our day never ends, it's always something, providing technical assistance, providing a daily cleaning service, organizing and hosting multiple marketing events to attract customers to the district, and providing business services. We are operating like a one-man band, developing a plan, networking with partners, providing services, and supporting our merchants, encouraging those who want to open new businesses, and of course, constantly chasing the new funding possibility. 10 years later, the bulk of our funding still mainly comes from the Commerce Department Targeted Commercial Corridor Program and Corridor Cleaning Grants, both of which are funded through CDBG dollars and limits the funding resources that we can support. We are thankful for Councilwoman Parker's support through the Philadelphia Activities Fund, which allows us to host community-focused activities that encourages residents to come to the corridor, such as open mic night in Olney, classes like yoga, Zumba, bop and cha-cha, self-defense class, and so much more at our local library and our neighborhood park at Fisher Park. The vast majority of our businesses are immigrant-owned mom and pop shops with limited resources, so we rely solely on Commerce Department funds for our community, for our economic development activities. Our ultimate goal is to establish a partnership for CDC tax credit for unrestricted funding. With unrestricted funding, our organization would be able to take our efforts to the next level and improve on existing programs, as well as accomplish many more activities, such as expand our staff, help more merchants with storefront improvement, workshops and enhanced technical assistance, improve streetscape with public trash receptacles, benches, public art, bike racks, and murals, improve safety and security cameras and street lighting, and green the corridor with trees, planters, and landscaping, as well as promote the corridor through more events, activities, and publications. Like all good things in life, community and economic development takes time. We see that ourselves in building relationships with business owners, residents, and community partners. The largest investment in economic development is time and consistency. Many of our business owners on North Fifth Street are immigrant business owners and are leery of anything that resembles government. The benefit of having a secure funding source for a 10-year period is immeasurable. Secure 10-year funding to an organization provides services to an underserved neighborhood, especially through business development and neighborhood improvement, which inspires community pride and may also spur the creation of jobs, and that benefits the community as a whole. Secure funding allows a CDC such as ours to develop a longer strategy, provide better services, and implement a neighborhood plan more efficiently. Our 2012 neighborhood plan to revitalize North 5th Street includes a timeline to implement over the span of 10 years. One would think all you need to do is have a plan and bam, those ideas just come to life. But it takes years to get everyone to know and understand the plan, to know their role in implementing the plan, and lastly, to execute. It takes time, but that's where the beauty in restoring a community lies. The impact to a commercial corridor and its surrounding residents is more than physical, more than economic. It lifts the whole spirit of the neighborhood, creating a better place to live, work, and play, so that people can honestly say, this is my community, I live here, I work here, and I'm responsible for what happens here. For the past 10 years, we have been identifying and meeting with possible partners in order to be prepared and take advantage of the CDC tax credit program. We have tried every possible avenue to secure a possible spot. We've met with local businesses and institutions. We've tried using the networks of board members as well as cold calling possible partners with no success and much anxiety. One of the main issues we faced in our efforts has been to identify a partner organization that has a yearly BERT tax liability of $100,000. Although we have considerable number of large corporations in the city, there's no way of determining who is eligible short of meeting them. We have found that we often end up at a dead end with a possible corporation with the reduction of the BERT tax rates over the past years. It's getting harder to find businesses that have that level. Being able to partner with a company that has a real estate tax liability, that would open up a larger pool of opportunity and potential businesses that we can recruit to participate. This change would make the recruitment process less daunting and would save time, as it would make it easier to find targeted businesses since their tax liability is public information. An effective and accessible CDC tax credit partner program works hand in hand with the city's effort to keep Philadelphia neighborhoods sustained, equitable, and restored. The CDC tax credit partner has the potential to be a holistic approach to neighborhood development by making sure the CDCs that are social workers, nurses, teachers, and the cleaning crew of our neighborhoods are well funded. Without dedicating resources to our neighborhood's Main Street, the ecology of Philadelphia's redevelopment remains out of balance. On behalf of the merchants of North 5th Street and Alney, I urge City Council to expand the CDC tax credit partner. With this committed investment to restoring communities, CDCs can continue their efforts in making their communities shine. And I thank you all for your time today.
Thank you. My name is Musa Trawale. I'm a commercial corridor manager for the African Cultural Alliance of North America, ACANA. I want to thank the council for giving us the opportunity to come here and testify on behalf of the CDC tax credit. The African Cultural Alliance Community Development Corporation urges the City Council Finance Committee to extend the CDC tax credit program to help benefit commercial corridors, especially commercial corridor like Woodland Avenue in Southwest Philadelphia. This section of the city is a low-income neighborhood with an average median household income of $30,391. The extension of the tax program will help ACANA to form a partnership with business owners and provide technical assistance to enhance the commercial corridor and make it inviting and safer for shoppers, residents, and business owners, and overall for the city of Philadelphia. ACANA CDC will help small business owners to include storefront improvement, security camera installation, and lightening the commercial corridor to create more visibility. The enhancement programs on these commercial corridors will reduce crime rates and increase shopper traffic flow to these businesses, which will lead to huge revenue generating and job creating opportunity in this low-income neighborhood. In addition, the Akana Community Development Corporation will help to assist small business owners with technical assistance to increase the presence of small business online, which in our opinion is lacking primarily for immigrant business owners, many of whom English is their second language. Members of the City Council Finance Committee, the 10-year term of this program will ensure the stability of Akana for the long term and allow us to plan, implement, and fundraise for projects and programs that will have a lasting impact on the commercial corridor and surrounding communities. I want to thank you for the opportunity.
Good morning. My name is Andy Trackman. I'm Executive Director of Germantown United CDC. The CDC tax credit program has been an enormous success in Philadelphia and is largely the reason why we have such a strong network of CDCs. Germantown United strongly supports the expansion of the number of slots to be added to this program per Council Bill number 180261, and we urge Council to pass this bill by June of this year. We also urge Council to work over the summer to create increased flexibility in the type of city taxes that can be used in this program, such as real estate taxes. My organization is not currently in this program, although it is not from lack of trying. Challenges we have faced in entering the program. First, finding the businesses who can meet the $100,000 BIRT obligation requirement. We have either found businesses who were willing to participate but didn't meet that threshold by themselves, or we found more than two combined, which exceeded the two business maximum for this partnership. Secondly, there's not been any slots available for us to even apply for. Were we able to be in this program, the additional funds would give us the stability to address the many needs of the Germantown neighborhood with additional staff, enable us to help grow the capacity of our smaller neighborhood partner organizations, leverage these funds for private foundation grants, and provide a source of matching funds for many of the state and government grants for economic development. Economic development work at the neighborhood level is a long-term strategy. It takes time to build relationships and trust with business owners, particularly smaller businesses or immigrant-owned businesses that may be suspicious of government programs. True community development is done with the community, and that requires planning, stakeholder engagement and input, and then execution. It takes longer, but creates more buy-in from the local residents and businesses that are the fabric of our neighborhoods, and they deserve and need to be part of this process. Knowing that the organization will still be in business and have staff over the long haul means Germantown United CDC can plan projects, such as capital projects that take a lot of time, and events, then implement them over the years. Other funding sources are very short-term, and we typically can't rely on them beyond a 12 or 24-month grant cycle. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and thank you for your consideration in expanding investment in neighborhood economic development.
Well, thank you all for your testimony. Anybody on the panel wish to ask any questions? Well, thank you so much for coming down here and providing us with your testimony. Keep up the great work. We're all so proud of what you do, and we wish you growth and success and continuing to serve our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, we will go to our next panel. I'm going to put my glasses on because I'm getting old. All right, so Mike Harris, Brian, Linda Caldwell-Smith, and Tara Gonchak. And for the record, two of the panelists are in the 6th District, so I want to thank them for, trudging down 95 during its construction process here. Could take about an hour to go 11 miles. But there are many other community groups and CDCs that are in the district that could not be here, who have actually wrote me letters that I will be providing for the record in support of this legislation. And also to Councilwoman Parker, when we do our business services, we don't just do it in Tacony, we do it all over the place, and we kick it and we have a great time. So with that, I'd like to ask Linda to state your name for the record, and you may proceed with your testimony. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Councilman. My name is Linda Caldwell Smith, and I am Vice President of the Home Circle Civic Association in Northeast Philadelphia. I want to thank you, Councilman, and the members of the committee for the opportunity to express our association's support for Bill number 180261. Since we were founded in 2008, Home Circle Civic has been working to improve the quality of life and to promote civic involvement within our boundaries. And we think we've kind of met that goal. We have a lot of civic engagement, we are active in many community affairs, and we're kind of like a sounding board for the community's issues. But now we believe we can do more, and we have begun the process of forming a CDC for the Home Circle area. We know there's a lot of work involved, and the more I hear in these hearings, the more scared I get. But the success achieved by our counterparts in the Mayfair and Tacony Civic Associations and their respective neighborhoods is very encouraging. I mean, for example, anyone who walks down Frankfurt Avenue in Mayfair or Torresdale Avenue in Tacony can see for themselves the positive economic benefits that a CDC can bring to a community. These neighborhoods have an identity, a cohesiveness, a sense of prosperity that is obvious to the most casual observer riding by in either a 56 bus or a 66 trolley. We want this for our neighborhood as well. Well, as someone who has had family in Tacony for more than 50 years, and I've been going down there since the late 60s, I can say that the neighborhood has really benefited from the CDC's efforts. I have never seen Torresdale Avenue look that good, quite frankly. And it's not because of the new library either, even though that's a big part. I know. Okay. All right, well, while we're still in the very beginning planning stages, literally at the beginning, some of our preliminary outreach to businesses and residents within our boundaries has shown significant interest and a lot of support for the CDC idea. I think we're ready to start the process. Now, we understand that not every CDC application will be granted and that it's a long process, but yet we think that the economic and social benefits that having a CDC would be very beneficial to our community and that it should be available to any interested and qualified party in any neighborhood. So that's why we support this bill, and we thank you, Councilman Heenan, for your leadership and support. I mean, expanding a proven program that helps communities and neighborhoods to improve their quality of life by bringing new economic opportunities to its residents and businesses is a win-win scenario, and it's a no-brainer. We support it, and we thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Sarah?
Hi, good morning. My name is Tara Gontek. I've submitted written testimony for the record, and I'm going to go ahead and read that. And I'd also like to take a moment at the end to respond to some of the conversation that's been going on thus far. So as I said, my name is Tara Gontek. I am the president of the newly formed Holmesburg Community Development Corporation. I'm also the president of Holmesburg Civic Association. I serve on the Police District Advisory Council Board and several other boards in the neighborhood. Holmesburg is a middle neighborhood in the lower Northeast. We're a neighborhood rich with history, with scores of historical landmarks, including the Kings Highway Bridge, the oldest continuously operating bridge in the United States. Our organization is hoping to apply for the CDC tax credit program later this year, and also hope to be among those selected. It's been sort of the perception that the attitude of our legislators is that the Northeast in general is taking good care of itself. Yet middle neighborhoods like Holmesburg are starting to teeter dangerously close to the edge. We've seen a dramatic increase in quality of life challenges over the last several years. Trash in our streets, dilapidated storefronts, food insecurity across the community, and a severe lack of programming for businesses and residents. Our goal as a CDC is to address these concerns head on. We want to use the opportunity afforded to us by the CDC tax credit program to support historic preservation, increase safety on our commercial corridors through streetscape improvements and regular cleaning, create services for our local businesses to increase economic vitality, implement programs to benefit our community members such as employment search assistance and ESL classes, and decrease food insecurity by building community gardens and starting a food co-op. We also appreciate the need to communicate among our diverse population, and it's been proven that the arts speak a language beyond words. With this understanding, we also plan to utilize the resources afforded to us by the CDC tax credit program to present more community events surrounding the arts, such as outdoor theater, concerts, and interactive art shows to further promote our commercial corridors. The CDC tax credit has fostered incredible improvements over the years in the neighborhoods that needed it most. And by expanding the program, middle neighborhoods such as Holmesburg will have the opportunity to reproduce those same benefits in our communities. I'd like to thank you guys all for your time and attention to this important issue. And I'd especially like to thank Councilman Heenan, not only for bringing this issue to light, but for his continued support for all of our community groups in the 6th District. And I wanted to add one more thing to Councilwoman Parker's point. Not all CDCs are created equal. And we've talked a lot about startup CDCs, and those aren't all created equal either. At this point, the reason that we moved towards starting a CDC is because we have exhausted every resource that we possibly can on a volunteer-only basis. We've hosted tree giveaways. We've sent most of our board members to the Citizen Planning Institute to educate themselves. We attend conferences with PACDC and training exercises, and we've networked with CDCs across the city. And I can speak to my organization, and I'm sure there are several other startup organizations that feel the same way, that we've done our homework, and I don't feel that it's a one-size-fits-all model. I think that we should all be considered on our own merit, and I wholeheartedly hope that you will strongly consider expanding this great program.
Thank you for your testimony. State your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Sure. Still good morning, I think. Good morning. My name is Brian Fenstermaker. I am the Executive Director for the Passyunk Avenue Revitalization Corporation in South Philadelphia, Councilman Squill's district. I'd like to take the opportunity to testify in support of Bill 180261. For those that don't know, PARC has an ongoing mission, which is to provide community services through a dual strategy as both a nonprofit real estate development and management company and public space maintenance and enhancement organization. PARC provides public space maintenance, public event support, and improvement services on Passyunk Avenue and the surrounding neighborhoods. And as a management company, PARC owns real estate primarily on East Passyunk Avenue on the retail corridor and commits to community engagement and business attraction to ensure a quality retail mix that serves both the neighborhood and the region. Keeping it clean is what PARC does every day. We strive through 6-day-a-week, every year-long cleaning with subcontractors. The team maintains trash cans, addresses short dumping, graffiti, and poster removal on the avenue and South Broad Street. These are essential services for retaining East Passyunk Avenue's regional attraction and visitor appeal. For example, in 2017, our crew removed 7,300 bags of trash from the neighborhood sidewalks. That's approximately 140 tons of garbage and more than 16 dump trucks. There are little to no financial resources available to nonprofits in middle neighborhoods to support this type of work. Parker operates entirely from revenue generated from its properties, which isn't enough and not sustainable. Park is a lean organization with 1.5 staff and pays real estate taxes on its properties. Approximately 40% of Park's budget is dedicated to cleaning services, and another 30% to support maintenance and beautification of the public spaces. The CDC tax credit bill will allow continued services along the avenue and South Broad Street. An expansion of this program will go directly to Philadelphia neighborhoods and the vital commercial corridors. The program has had great success and built capacity for community development corporations through the city. I was a recipient of one in the Enterprise Center in West Philadelphia some years ago. As competitive as the program is, there's also partnership challenges, which has been discussed earlier today. Specifically for nonprofit, finding a partner with BERT liabilities. The courtship process is time-consuming and usually leads to dead ends. To that point, I've had more success finding a wife. I urge you to pass this bill as it stands now and work with PACDC and others to provide avenues for broadening the partnership track. For example, when we talk about the real estate partners, that would be an opportunity to open. I thank you for the opportunity to testify today and look forward to your questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Mike, if you may state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony, please.
Good morning. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to quickly testify in favor of this bill, which would expand the CDC tax credit program. My name is Mike Harris. I'm the Executive Director of the South Street Head House District. The South Street Head House District represents over 430 businesses in the South Street area, and thanks to City Council, was recently reauthorized to continue to build on the services and initiatives we've undertaken for the past 25 years. I want to thank Councilman Heenan, Chairman Blackwell, Councilman Squilla, and the other members of this body for recognizing the importance of the CDC tax credit program and supporting its expansion. For the past 3 years, the district has been trying to become a participant in this program, frankly, without success. First, the process to identify and secure sponsoring businesses is difficult and requires a good deal of effort, as has been explained. Without full information, CDCs must try to determine which businesses might meet the tax liability thresholds and then contact them to see if they're already in the program with another partner, and if not, would be willing to participate. We contacted well over a dozen different businesses before we were able to secure an interested and available company. In January 2017, we finally found a willing corporate partner and submitted an application. We did not end up getting awarded a slot in 2017 because we were drawn third in a lottery for 2 slots. Currently, the Philadelphia Code states applications are accepted on a first-come, first-served basis, and that the Revenue Department shall, when necessary, randomly choose via a lottery. There were 3 applications submitted in January 2017 and only 2 slots available. To get this far and to not be selected in a random lottery was a deep disappointment to the South Street District and our corporate partner, and a lost opportunity to invest $100,000 into our community this year. In looking at the 40 slots that are allocated currently, there is also an unevenness to the schedule of the openings. Based on the best information that I have, there were 2 openings in 2017, none in 2018, perhaps 1 to 3 in 2019, none in 2020, and then 13 in 2021. Now that we've identified a business willing to participate and sponsor the district, we run the possibility that the business may not still be interested to engage again 2 years from now. Clearly, from 2021 to 2023, many slots will be opening up, but that is many years and many deferred initiatives from now. And not to begrudge any of the existing CDCs currently in the program, but it does create a resource disadvantage for those CDCs trying to do the same work, but that are not in the program. Fortunately, our business partner still wants to partner with the district and sees the benefits of participating in this program and contributing directly to neighborhood community development. The South Street Head House District is the second oldest bid in the city and manages and maintains one of the highest profile and most visited tourist areas in the city. Our mission and task is to keep the area safe, clean, and economically vibrant on a daily basis. As a bid in CDC, we do not have a lot of options to expand and grow revenues, though we maximize other non-assessment sources as much as possible, which is the reason these tax credit program funds are so critical. Having a 10-year reliable source of income would allow us to invest more into cleaning, marketing, and other economic development initiatives at this critical time for South Street, which is one of the top destination spots for tourists visiting from around the country and world. Also, due to its census tract location between Society Hill and Queen Village, the South Street Head House District is not eligible to participate in CDBG-funded and other income-based programs, though the needs are there. Again, this is another reason this program is so important and such a high priority for us. Not to diminish the city's revenue needs, but the award of $100,000 annually into the district's budget would have a significant and direct impact to our community and commercial corridor that would be demonstrable. With the efforts made to get to this point in finding a willing partner and the high positive impact these funds would have on our community and neighborhood, I respectfully request that you seek to expand the program with the new slots proposed in this bill. Thank you for your consideration, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have about what this initiative means to the South Street District. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for your testimony. The chair recognizes Councilman Don.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had a few technical questions, and maybe, I'm not sure you can answer it, but maybe someone here can, and that is, to find a partner, you need a partner who pays $100,000 in BERT taxes?
Yes.
And so when you're in these neighborhoods that are smaller neighborhoods, there probably aren't many people in those neighborhoods who pay $100,000 in BERT taxes, which is an impossibility, right? That's your challenge, I guess, right? Yes. And so what was the reason for setting the bar at $100,000? Does anybody know? You know? Does Commerce know? I'm just curious, why is it $100,000? Who set that bar?
think Wilson can answer.
Okay, all right, come on up here. The chair will recognize the port in the eye of the storm, Wilson W. Good. Come on up here.
How long has he been waiting to sit up?
It's different than being on the other side, Councilman.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is W. Wilson Good Jr., Senior Policy Advisor, Office of City Council President. Good afternoon, Councilman Dom. This program was actually patterned after a state program, which still exists, which offered $250,000 per year. It's patterned after a program called the Philadelphia Plan, which had 10 slots and was focused on more housing development. This was focused on economic development, and we decided that you need at least $100,000 to provide the type of resources that needed for the type of group. But the program does actually allow for two different businesses to partner to make up that $100,000 threshold.
So it doesn't allow two businesses to partner?
It does.
Oh, it does?
It does.
Could you have three businesses partner?
As it's currently written, we don't, but we could change it to that. But right now, two businesses can partner to meet that $100,000 threshold.
Because I'm just thinking in one of the neighborhoods at Holmesburg, I'm not sure that those businesses are generating enough business that pay the amount of BERT taxes required for this program.
Yeah, the partners generally don't come from those neighborhoods. We've been lucky when they have, but we've been able to actually expand the program from 10 slots to 15 slots to 25 slots to 35, 40 slots, and hopefully with expansion to 50 slots, partners will know that there are slots available. And we actually know in one of these cases there's already a partner available. And so we've been able to fill slots as the program has expanded.
Does the partner have to live in that area?
No, the partner just has to be
anywhere in
a
Philadelphia?
BERT payer.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I do have a question for Mr. Harris.
Yes, Councilman.
You said you're the second oldest district?
We're the second oldest business improvement district after the Center City District, yes.
And is there a, I'm not, maybe there is, I think there is. Do you have like a district tax in your district?
There is a district assessment, yes. We're one of the 14 bids in the city that does do an assessment. However, it is a capped assessment by which the demands and the costs will continue to increase, but we are capped at the assessment, so we do fill in with non-assessment income to carry out the services and initiatives that we undertake.
Is that assessment based off the real estate taxes?
It is based off the assessed valuation of the property. It's capped and then redistributed amongst the properties based on the city's valuation of those properties.
So over the last 2 years, while we've all seen assessments dramatically increase, does that mean that your bid has received more revenue?
No, sir, it does not. We are set and capped by City Council and by the ordinance that was, so we don't grow with the assessment. Basically, think of it as the pieces of the pie get reshifted every year based on the valuation, but we do not grow as in proportion to the city's.
How much is ballpark your annual budget?
Our annual budget right now is $800,000. And of that, 575 comes out of assessments.
And that $800,000, how is that invested back into South Street?
We are a two-person organization. We pay for daily street cleaning. We support the mini station. We do marketing events and PR. We do a Safe Cam incentive program where we incentivize businesses to put cameras on the street. And we do other business and economic development to try to keep the area vibrant and fill the vacancies that are on the street.
So let me just ask this question because I'm a little familiar with it.
Yes, sir.
The other side of South Street, from Broad to, let's say, 25th, in the last 5 to 7 years has developed amazingly well. Amazingly well. But the side from Broad to Front is still struggling, in my opinion. Why do you think that is?
Well, this month's Philadelphia Magazine had a feature article on South Street that I think kind of explained a lot of the history of it. There's a number of varieties of reasons that go into it, but it's not from the lack of trying of our organization to bring property owners along, to engage them, to bring in good tenants that support both the tourist industry as well as the neighborhoods and the communities that lives around us. So we have older, smaller buildings, but that's why we take advantage of the storefront improvement grant, and we try to encourage people to be part of that. Like any commercial corridor, a historic commercial corridor, it goes through its ebbs and flows, and right now we have new businesses coming in. Sometimes it doesn't happen as quickly or as perceptibly as we'd like, but we do bring in over 1 million people a year, so we still are a destination. We just simply are trying to make it as economically viable and vibrant to best represent the city as we can.
No, I still remember that song by the Orlons, right?
The who?
Orlons. You don't even know who they are. Orlons.
I actually found another song.
What?
I actually found out there was a song the other day by the Taffies called Do the South Street. It's a totally different song. So now South Street has 2 songs I didn't know about.
When I go down there and I see what's going on, I'm concerned that it can't be so much better. It has so much potential. It's in the middle of everything that's exploding, and here we have South Street on that little corridor that I think has tremendous potential.
Yes, sir.
Tremendous potential. And I think one of your challenges is I think there's a New York owner of real estate, I'll just be very blunt about this, that owns 35 or so properties, okay? And there's no master plan on how those properties should be developed and handled in that corridor. And that's, I think, affecting your ability, because when you look at the other side, the reason why it did so well, it was kind of open, and there was opportunity to have bigger locations and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Here it's more controlled. But whatever we can do to work with that person in New York that owns these properties, I think that's holding back that section of South Street. And that's really bad for that whole community.
The owner in question is somebody that we do work with and communicate with. He does own several properties. I think one of the issues is we also have historic properties, not legal historic, but historic with a small h, that are also small footprints. So they're anywhere from 1,200 to 2,000 square feet. And so these are smaller, independently owned and operated, and they don't, without demolition, really allow for bigger footprints. We actually have only 2 or 3 properties that have sort of significant size footprints. So it allows us to be independently owned and operated. We have 400 small businesses of our total. And so, I think we're a unique area. I think we're important to the city and the history of the city. We want to make sure we live up to that and make it even better.
I mean, the best example is 13th Street 15, 20 years ago, before Tony Goldman accumulated all that property and changed what occurred there.
I look at that a lot. I study that. We look at how Chicago and other areas have transformed neighborhoods and taking the older commercial corridor and making it more relevant. South Street is not the only spot in town anymore, and so more competition. But that's why this tax credit program, to get back to that, is so important, because it allows us to have resources to do, if we were to have it, we would increase our cleaning equipment, we would do retail market analysis, we would continue our safe cam incentives, we would, and do things to support storefront improvements, whether it be through beautification or incentives to fill those. And these funds would allow us to do those things.
And I agree with you on the tax credit, but for your situation, it's maybe 12% of your budget, and for Holmesburg, it could be 75% of their budget.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see where the impact in the smaller corridors is very important. I'm in favor of all of them. I'm just saying in general, I could see where it's more impactful in the smaller ones. I would be happy if you want to help you get South Street back on track. I have some ideas. So if you want to meet after this, let me know, because I go down there and see what's going on, and it bothers me what's going on there.
I will make a beeline to you.
It's not acceptable for us. We should improve it.
Thank you, Councilman. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman, thank you. And, I just want to clarify for the record, and thank you for your testimony. South Street, you're talking about it's a unique neighborhood or a unique district. The city of Philadelphia has unique neighborhoods.
Yes.
All right, all with its clear and prideful distinctions.
Yes,
all right, that people want to share. We're talking about Holmesburg, where we got the oldest operating bridge in the country, right here in the city of Philadelphia, called the King's Highway. All right, and it was an edict that was brought down, all right, by the King of England, who said, hey, listen, you either are going to build a bridge as a community, or we're going to tax you, all right, to build a bridge. all right, and we're going to get it built. But what it did, it was allowed the commerce to come down to Center City right here and build, the epicenter of where, the wagon wheel has developed our great city of Philadelphia, all right, because of that bridge. And along that bridge, you develop, not just Holmesburg, but you develop Tacony, you develop Mayfair, you develop Frankfurt, you develop Bridesburg, and all the way down Fishtown, all the way down to where we are right now, where we're doing the work of the people here in this great building. All right, so, and there are inequities when it comes to startups and CDC opportunities. We have special service groups. Mike was just talking about, South Street Head House, right? It's a special service district, all right? Tacony and Holmesburg and other parts of my district, they are not special service districts. They do not have that dedicated funding, all right, where they can rely on. They will solely rely on sweat equity fundraising, support of their elected officials, and a CDC tax credit partner, all right? So that would be their lifeline or go broke, all right? And that's really where we are, and that's why I think, and it's not just me, I appreciate, the accolades, it's every member of this committee and city council that wants to see that uniqueness of every neighborhood, which makes us a Philly of neighborhoods, thrive and grow. So I just want to, show that and, mention that distinction between a special service district, which are bids and other resources where businesses are defined by legislation, right? Just as the CDC tax credit is defined by legislation to find a partner to help be a good partner financially, give it back to the community. CDC tax credit also, or bids also define areas of commercial, all right, corridors or areas of business which can fluctuate in size that creates more equity than another person. All right, Northeast Philadelphia is rocking, all right, and we do a great job with limited resources, all right. We just do it with hard work, gloves, commitments on Saturdays and Sundays, all right, to give back. So, I'm sure we are no different than any other neighborhood in the city of Philadelphia. So, everybody keep up the good work. The chair recognizes Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown.
Good morning, everyone. What is the protocol or procedures that CDCs go through to reach out to access, lean on neighborhood businesses to buy into the CDC mission? And when is the last time, have you had an opportunity recently to sit down, confer with the city planning department, South Philadelphia, South Street CDC?
Well, in terms of the process, are you speaking to the terms of the process we went through to do the CDC tax credit?
Yeah.
Frankly, we took the list that we had of who's already participating.
Okay.
We had a list of who's participating. We took, frankly, the Philly Business Journal and went through, and you have to make guesses, educated guesses of who has the tax liability of $100,000, and then you start calling them. Basically, if you heard, you start cold calling them, you start doing it that way. Mm-hmm. And you either you have to educate people on the program, why they should be part of it. And eventually we did come to a organization, a company, that it's not in our neighborhood, but it is in Philadelphia, of course, who is both interested, saw the value in it, wanted to participate in it, and had the tax liability. So once you secure them, that's like a precious thing. It's a precious partnership. So that we have confirmed with them that they would still be very interested in being partners with us. They see the value of investing corporately, investing directly and supporting a neighborhood development. So I think there's benefits to the businesses as well as the CDCs.
Of course. For any of those at the table or any others who have spoken, is it a common practice to sit with the city planning department or the city planning department representative assigned to your particular district to confer with them and learn from them what the long-term goals may be for that particular community?
Thank you for your question, Councilwoman. I can speak to our experience in Holmesburg. We consult the Planning Commission at pretty much every juncture to make sure that our plans are in line with the 2035 plan and whatever else that they have in mind. So yes.
Very good.
Yes, Councilwoman. I mean, we're at the very beginning of the process, and it sounds like this is a best practice we should follow as well. Thank you for the question.
Absolutely. I would suggest that be a fundamental first step. It's part of the homework and backroom intel that you should have before you invest dollars that lead you down a road where you then discover that you're not in alignment with what the city's goals and missions might be. So kudos for at least recognizing that that is an important fundamental first step, because it's just a way of working smarter with the limited dollars that you have. Thank you very much for the testimony of everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilwoman, and thank you all for your testimony. Is there anyone else here that wishes to testify on Bill number 180261? That being none, we will end our public hearing on the Committee of Finance and go into our public meeting of the Committee of Finance, and the chair recognizes Councilman Greenlee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that bill numbers 180261, 180392, and 180393 be reported from this committee with favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of these bills at our next session of council.
Second. It's been second. All those approve signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? The ayes have it. Bill numbers 180261, 180392, and 180393 will be reported out of this committee with a favorable recommendation and to be reported at our next council session. And I want to thank you all for your testimony and your time and your patience. And this concludes our meeting of the public hearing of finance. Thank you.